Welcome to the Victoria Electric Vehicle Association, our electric vehicle update for January 2024. Why electric vehicles and why now? What will we cover today? Global vehicle production over the last 6 years, global shifts to EV mandates and the population involved around the planet, global new EV sales 2023, average Canadian vehicle data. This is to get context on what is happening. Efficiency and emissions. ICE, that's internal combustion engine versus electric vehicle comparisons, and the sport utility vehicle bracket. Electric vehicles on the market. New and used EV incentives for British Columbians. EV charge equipment incentives for British Columbians. And now, global vehicle production from 2017 to 2023. If you look at this slide, 2017, a total of 96.2 million vehicles were built on the planet. And this was also the first year that electric vehicles crossed over the 1 million mark. Come to the end of 2023, 14.1 million electric vehicles were built. And this meant that 72 million internal combustion engine vehicles were built. That is a drop over the past 6 years of over 30%, meaning that we had a total of only 86 million cars built last year compared to 6 years before over 96 million, which means 12% fewer vehicles of all types were built around the planet. Now we're going to look at mandates. Here are the main things you want to look at is that this is all the top 34 countries on the planet by gross domestic product. All of them have EV sales required and a drop dead date for internal combustion engine sales, and they all rack out somewhere around 2035. When you look at all the population of the countries involved, that is almost half of all of humanity and every significant car economy on the planet. Now we'll look at global EV sales for 2023. Here's your standard bell curve. And in EV adoption, we go from innovators through early adopters, early majority adopters, late majority adopters, and laggards. And we'll be able to look at how different countries and regions are doing. United States, this year, they sold their first just over 1 million electric vehicles in the country. That's 7% of all their sales this year. Canada doing quite well, 13% this year. Globally, 17%, all the countries combined. United Kingdom, 20%. British Columbia, we're doing very well, 25%. One out of every 4 cars sold in this province is an electric vehicle. China, 36%. This is very important. All the legacy internal combustion engine makers out of Europe and North America, they all knew that in their own regions that sales were going to be stagnating because the countries are getting quite stable, and they had all pinned their hopes on the expanding market in China to basically pay for their future. As you can see, that hasn't happened, and they're in big trouble. And then we look at Norway, way over there, 84%. They got very serious about a decade ago with various incentives and regulations. Several major automakers, Volkswagen being one of them, do not sell internal combustion vehicles in Norway anymore. We'll look at the number 1 vehicle sold in 2023. Those of you may remember there's a perennial favorite, the Toyota Corolla, which has been the number 1 vehicle sold in the world for many years. And here it is. It's number 3 on our list this year, just over 1 million sold. Number 2, another Toyota product, the RAV4, just over 1 million sold again. And the number 1 top selling vehicle of any type on the planet, 2023, an electric vehicle, Tesla Model Y, 1.23 million vehicles. That is a very large shift in the way the world has run to date. Having looked at the global situation, we're going to look at how Canadians actually use their vehicles with some average Canadian vehicle data. So average kilometers per day driven in Canada, many people would think a lot higher, but it's only 36 to 40 kilometers. That covers off more than 95% of daily travel. Average daily commute time, 30 minutes one way, 1 hour daily, 240 hours a year in your car. Average speed in urban areas, you may see the posted limit as being 50 or 60k, but when you add it all up from the start and stop, you end up with 36 kilometers an hour. Average kilometers per year driven in Canada, again, it's going to be much lower than people think, but this is how far each individual vehicle travels. 15,000 kilometers, give or take. Average range of electric vehicles on sale in Canada in 2023. If you were thinking about this back in 2013 or even 2014, you might say 130 kilometers. That would be the Nissan Leaf. Today, there are so many different EVs on the street that have much longer ranges. It's now well over 400 kilometers. Now we'll continue with our average Canadian vehicle data. Average internal combustion engine fuel consumption. Back after the first manufactured oil crisis through OPEC in the 70s, most of the North American and European market swore they would get their fleet averages above 30 miles per gallon. 40 years later, where are we at? 8.6 liters per 100, which comes out to 27 miles per gallon. We have failed. Average gas price, British Columbia over 2022-2023, $2 per liter, which means for the average amount of driving you're doing, $2,600 a year in a product that you buy but have to give away. Average price of an internal combustion engine vehicle sold at the end of 2023 in Canada, this will be surprising, 68 grand. Average price of most EVs sold in Canada, and these are mainly vehicles like the Chevy Bolt, the Kia vehicles and the Hyundais, and the 2 biggest seller of the Teslas, 65 grand. Average consumption of power per 100 kilometers of an electric vehicle, 15. Now we're going to look at some vehicle efficiency from Natural Resources Canada. Best fuel efficiency of a car without some sort of electric assist, 40 miles per gallon, the Mitsubishi Mirage. Nice little commuter car. Best conventional hybrid vehicle efficiency, you'll probably be able to guess this one, 52 miles per gallon at the Toyota Prius. Average battery electric vehicle efficiency, meaning some are a lot better and some are worse, but the average, 112 miles per gallon in the Chevy Bolt is a good representative of that. Now let's look at emissions. People always like to turn around and say that the grid adds a lot to an electric vehicle, and we have to take that into account, and that's completely true. So let's look at the emissions from Canada's grid and then compare those to our average Canadian car, our 40 mile per gallon really good ICE car, and our 52 mile per gallon hybrid. So here we have all the provinces and territories in Canada. Information provided by the Canadian Energy Regulator in 2020. You'll look in here, you'll see British Columbia. We're almost virtually all hydro. 7.6 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour produced. Manitoba, similarly, they have 1.1, a lot of hydro. Quebec, 1.5, very good. You also go down to Newfoundland, 24. They have a fair amount on their grid. And Ontario has a fair amount as well as nuclear. Interesting ones on here are, if you look at PEI, 4 grams per kilowatt hour. Most of their power these days is via wind turbine. If you look at Alberta and Saskatchewan, they still have a fair amount of coal and methane gas turbine generated electricity on their grids. So they're fairly dirty, as it were. But Nunavut, all their electricity comes from diesel generators, from fuel that has to be trucked up from the south to them all winter. But you take all these together, you get the Canadian average of 110 grams per kilowatt hour of electricity produced. Now, when you drop those into an electric vehicle that uses 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, you get these figures. Okay, so it looks pretty good here in British Columbia. Alberta and Saskatchewan, pretty high, 8.5 kilograms, 8.7 kilograms. And to the very worst, Nunavut, 12 kilograms. So this is all electric vehicle running on these different grids. Now let's compare that to the 27 mile per gallon ICE vehicle, 8.6 liters per 100 kilometers. Nowhere in Canada is it worse to drive an electric vehicle than driving the average Canadian ICE vehicle. In fact, driving the average ICE vehicle in Canada is 135 times worse than the Canadian average. Now, if we look at our 40 mile per gallon ICE vehicle, 6.7 liters per 100, again, nowhere in Canada is it worse to drive an electric vehicle. In fact, they're all a whole lot better. 105 times worse to drive a gas car than the Canadian national grid average. But wait, the 50 mile per gallon hybrid ICE vehicle at 5 liters per 100 kilometers. Surely that must get close. Yes, in one place, 13 kilograms for every 100 kilometers driven gets close, but still a full kilogram over the dirtiest energy in Canada, in Nunavut. And it's 78 times worse than the Canadian national average. So the grid doesn't matter. Driving a gas car or any car that burns gas is worse than driving an electric vehicle for emissions. Right, let's do a comparison of an internal combustion engine vehicle versus a battery electric vehicle for an SUV. Here we have the Ford Explorer all-wheel drive versus the Tesla Model Y long-range all-wheel drive. And we'll look at that in several characteristics: acceleration, purchase price, operational fuel cost at 15,000 kilometers a year, the annual maintenance cost. Now, when you add the operational fuel cost and maintenance cost together, you get an operations and maintenance cost, and we roll that out to 5 years. Annual greenhouse gas impact, and also the internal volume of the vehicle. So, the ICE vehicle, 5.8 seconds to 100 kilometers versus the 5 seconds for the electric vehicle. Purchase price, The ICE vehicle undercuts the EV by $5,000. Operational fuel costs, $3,300 a year for the ICE vehicle versus $270 a year for the EV. And that's charging at home, an average of the Step 1 and Step 2 rate at BC Hydro. And let's make the point, you're charging at home. Maintenance costs. These are provided by Ford themselves, about $900 for the ICE vehicle, $100 for the electric vehicle, and really stretching to find ways to spend $100 per year that is different from what you would spend in that would be common to the two vehicles. 5-year cost total. So you add up your purchase price plus your operations and maintenance. Over 5 years, the ICE vehicle will cost you $86,000. If you roll it out for another 5 years, so you've owned it for 10 years, that's $107,000. The EV, after 5 years, will have cost you just under $72,000, and after 10 years, will have cost you just under $74,000. That is more than $40,000 less than the supposedly cheaper internal combustion engine vehicle. Greenhouse gas impact. 4,287 kilograms every year you're sharing with your neighbors. The EV, 18.24 kilograms, and that is produced at the dam. And the size of the vehicle, you need a quick look at this. The EV is even bigger. So we've definitely got an advantage here with the EV in these various marks. Now let's look at EVs on the market. How many EV makes and models are on the market today? This will surprise you. Of course, makes and models all have a lot of different variations on them, so this will be surprising. There are 162 in Canada. How many of them are at or below that $68,000 average ICE car price? Just over half of them. How many EVs are working, doing the job day in, day out, 24/7, 365 in this country? Over 400,000. Now let's look at incentives for British Columbia here, both provincial and federal. You can find most of these and check out which cars the incentives can be applied to, going to the Clean BC pages with a motive and Go Electric. So Clean BC Go Electric rebate is an income tested $2,000 to $4,000 off the sale price of the vehicle. There are some restrictions on that, which you can see there. Big point in here is that all used electric vehicles are exempt provincial sales tax. So that will save you some serious money. There's also the BC Specialty Used Vehicle Incentive, which will get you up to $2,000 for an electric motorcycle. And for cargo e-bikes and medium and heavy duty EVs, anywhere from $1,700 to $100,000. Federally, the IZEV rebate, which you can look up online, from $2,500 to $5,000, depending on just how much of the vehicle is being moved by electric energy. That's the capacity of the battery on board. And they have some restrictions there on which ones you can buy, but again, you're going to get a whole lot of great selection of vehicles and incentives to boot. Now, the equipment that connects your vehicle to your home and or business, these can be found under BC Hydro on EV charger rebates. Single-family home, 50% of the purchase and installation of an electric vehicle support equipment, EVSE, up to $350. Most of the time you can get that work done for well under $1,000. If you live in a larger building, a multi-unit residential building, you can have your strata can get $3,000 for engineers to come in and look at your EV ready plan. And then once it starts being built, you can get 50% of the cost, up to $600 per space, and $120,000 for networked managed level 2 chargers in your garage. The EVSE rebate, $1,400 max per electric vehicle support equipment, up to $14,000. If you have a workplace, you can get $2,000 for the setup of an EVSE, up to $14,000. Now, Victoria Electric Vehicle Association, challenging perceptions and providing context since 2010. Hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and we'll see you again another time.